Datasat Digital Entertainment started in 1993 as Digital Theater Systems when it introduced millions of moviegoers to 5.1 digital surround sound with the June release of Jurassic Park. In the last 19 years, Datasat designed and built over 17 different products for cinemas and movie studios, including digital audio processors and playback systems that have been installed in over 30,000 professional cinemas worldwide. These playback systems are still considered to be the premium audio offering in digital sound for film releases, and the AP20 cinema audio processor is second to none in audio quality and features for digital cinema or film. In 1996, the Datasat digital sound technology won an Academy Award when the team was presented with the Technical Achievement Award in the Scientific and Engineering category for the design and development of the DTS digital sound system for motion picture exhibition. Datasat Digital Entertainment was born in May of 2008 when DTS Digital Cinema was purchased by the major shareholders of Datasat Communications in the UK. Datasat Communications is a 25-year-old private company offering high-level secure satellite transmission and delivery for the British government, news services, and US government organizations. Many of the same audio engineers, production, and operational staff that were responsible for the launch and success of DTS became, and continue to be, a part of the Datasat Digital Entertainment team. Datasat has now leveraged its vast and proven expertise in state-of-the-art audio product design to focus on bringing an audiophile quality audio processor as well as amplifiers to the high-end home cinema market. The Datasat digital surround sound format has been featured on over 14,000 releases, including 2,500 Hollywood movies. Hollywood studios and movie makers across the globe utilize Datasat sound technology for a superior listening experience. As a result, our Datasat digital sound logo appears during the end credits, in movie trailers, promotional one-sheet movie posters, Datasat promotional posters, and plaques displayed at the cinemas and expose the brand of Datasat to millions of consumers each and every day. In addition to the exposure provided on behalf of the studios, the trailer you just heard is available on Blu-ray, and professional cinemas worldwide play the same trailer prior to the main feature. Datasat has been delivering high-quality immersive digital surround sound to professional theaters around the world since 1993. With offices in California and the UK, the winning combination of outstanding customer service, a proven history of audio excellence, and quality products along with the marketing brand recognition to story is very compelling. And now with the RS20i, a true cinema experience is available at home. It's time to listen and be amazed again. It's bringing the true sound of cinema to your home.
That's a very good question. If there would be any movie I could remix in 3D, it would be Star Wars Return of the Jedi.
No surprises there.
That's a great question.
So yeah, Star Wars, it's obvious, but has to be.
I will betray my genre movie nerd roots here and say that the movie that I would love to see not only remixed but completely re-recorded is Sergio Leone's classic Once Upon a Time in the West, which has an amazing score by Ennio Morricone that was recorded in mono, and it's a compressed track, and I would dearly love to see that entire score re-recorded in RO 11.1 at Abbey Road, and then a whole new soundtrack mixed for that film.
The reason that we're here today is to announce some exciting additions to the range of products from Datasat. There is a new processor line called the LS10, the Luxury Series, and there is also an exciting addition to the RS20, which is their Reference Series product. Both of these products are actually bringing to the market for the first time a new sound format called Oro 3D, and obviously we're all very excited about that.
Datasat is a company that's 26 years old. It was set up by a man called Phil Emmel. It was heavily based in the satellite business for the first 20 years of its life. And 5 years ago, Phil bought DTS Digital Cinema, the professional cinema part from DTS Inc. And for the last 5 years, we've been promoting and creating products for the commercial and professional cinema market. And in the last 2 years, we've moved into the high-end home audio market, specializing in home cinema, but also moving into 2-channel as well. We offer two levels of products. We've got a reference series range, The first product we introduced there was the RS20i high-end audio processor with room optimization. Then we introduced some pretty powerful and beefy amplifiers, the 7-channel amplifier, the RA7300, that's 7 channels at 300 watts, and the RA2400, 2 channels at 400 watts. And at the moment, we're now in the middle of launching a luxury series, so it's a more modest price range, and we've launched that with a product called the LS10, and we're quite excited at the moment because we're launching at the same time Oro surround sound for both the RS20i and the LS10.
The LS10 differs from the RS20i because it's aimed to be a slightly more price conscious product. We certainly didn't want to compromise on sound quality in any way, so there is very little difference between the products. So really it came down to what features could be included and what had to go. Things that had to go are the Dirac room correction technology. That's reserved for RS20i now, that's not in the LS series. And also the RS20 includes matrix routing, so really you can map any input to any output channel and do crossovers and complicated stuff like that. It's great, but you don't need that on every system, so it was a pretty easy choice to leave that out of the LS10 also and allow us to hit a better price point. On the other side, of course, the LS10 has a number of very interesting features of its own. The first one I'm sure people will be interested to know is it does have XLR output connectors, no more DB25. It has 8 HDMI inputs and 2 outputs. HDMI 1.4 for now, of course, because there is no HDMI 2.0 chipsets available. And then the final thing that we think will be very interesting is it actually has a USB input which can accept 192.24 files for high-res audio from a computer. I really think that could be quite interesting also.
So what we wanted to do with the LS10 is make these new immersive sound formats more accessible to a broader consumer base. So it still supports DTS Neo X, Dolby Pro Logic 2Z, and of course we're excited to add as an option the Oro 3D format, but we wanted to bring it in at a price point that's more accessible to more people. So to that end, we've designed a box that has all of the features that you need for immersive playback, but we left out some of the flexibility and customization that the RS20i offers to people who are building very complex screening rooms.
The LS10 is aimed still at the higher end of the market, of course, approximate price around £10,000. So it's not an entry-level product, but it does open up to a wider range. It opens us up more to everyday customers who would look to put this into their own system rather than perhaps a dedicated custom install solution, which really is what the RS20i is. So we think it can be quite interesting for living rooms and media rooms as well as very high-end dedicated cinemas.
Oro Technologies is a company that's been founded in 2010 as a result of an intellectual invention of our founder and CEO, Wilfried van Balen, dated in 2005, when he had this concept of enhancing the current sound formats that were out there, and he was looking for a way to immerse the audience further to include the third sound coordinate. So Wilfried started off from a blank sheet using PCM as the most pure audio standard in digital sound. And from that white paper, he started building and using the 24-bit stream to actually find that there were 4 bits into that 24-bit stream that were consistently underused. In that 4-bit stream, or the 4 bits, we have developed a mechanism, a methodology that allows through mathematical reproduction to involve the third sound coordinate, in fact.
So Oro is a really interesting technology in that they wanted to maintain absolute backwards compatibility to current release formats. So it's a PCM packing technology in which they can pack multiple channels of uncompressed audio into single PCM bit streams. So an Oro 11.1 digital cinema package is contained within the 5.1 soundtrack. So for the studios, that's great. It means it's a single inventory of DCPs. So a movie is mixed in Oro 11.1, encoded down to 5.1, and distributed. If the cinema has an Oro processor, then it's unpacked and played back in 11.1. If they don't, it just plays through in 5.1. And that same paradigm will apply to consumer formats. So without needing to alter the Blu-ray spec, without needing to alter the HDMI spec, we can now transmit 11.1 or even 13.1 Oro soundtracks over the same 7.1 bit stream that Blu-rays have included all along.
The obvious question would become, how can you convince the wife to add more speakers into the living room, so to speak? And the wife acceptance factor, as we would call it, is a very important factor and was in fact one of the key decision criteria that we looked at when we were designing the minimum speaker layout. In fact, everyone in the home has the 5.1 as a surround playback system. Adding the 4 speakers at the height layer would just mean that we would be adding 4 speakers above the 4 corner speakers that would already be present. So from an acceptance or aesthetical point of view, it has a minimum impact on the physical layout of the living room.
So the full Oro format is 13.1, which uses the 7.1 bed that we all know from Blu-ray today, and adds to that height channels that correspond to the left, center, right screen channels, the left and right surrounds, and then a center top channel directly overhead. But the format allows you to downmix 13.1 content into smaller channel arrays. So the minimum recommended array is a 9.1 format, which would be 5.1, and then you do need that height layer to really get the immersive effect, which would be just left surround, right surround. And I think you'll find that adding 4 bookshelf speakers that are wall-mounted fairly high up at the corners of the room is not something out of reach for even an average high-end home theater.
Well, there's a number of ways you can listen to Oro. You can sit in the cinema experience and get blown away, and it is quite an amazing experience. But what we're demonstrating at a number of the events that we're holding at the moment is the progression between mono, stereo, 5.1, and then adding the height layers. And I have to say, when you start to add the height layers, you sit back and you wonder, why was this never done before? It seems so natural. Why wasn't it done before? But doing that and then applying that to the actual movies, it is mind-blowing, absolutely mind-blowing.
If you look back over the history of film, technology has always advanced to enable storytellers to do what they do, and that is to tell stories. So the advance from silent film to talkies to stereo to planar surround sound with 5.1 and 7.1, if you talk to mixers, adding that additional height level just gives you an added degree of realism that just helps the filmmaker steer the audience emotionally towards where that story is going.
Now that's a very hard question, because there isn't one that I can actually, oh God, you got me now.
Sound doesn't make a bad film good, but it does make a good film even better. I mean, the first, when you go to a cinema and it's got a great sound system and the bass is thumping you in the chest and you've got sound all around you, it does draw you into the movie.
Book of Eli.
Well, like Transform. Okay, can I just think about them? Sucker Punch, Transformers.
There's a scene in the Book of Eli that I had the demo actually on with the RS-20i, and it was a scene with the drone gun, and it absolutely blew me away, to be honest. And I think, I don't know if it's well known, but to me it just absolutely blew me away.
I mean, films that stand out for me. I mean, I could, if I was going to say, to name you one movie that's got a brilliant soundtrack, I couldn't.
A bit of a tough question, but I'm a firm believer that it's 50% visual, 50% audio. And as someone said to me, if you turn the music off on the audio off on a horror film, it's not a horror film, is it?
Because dependent on the mood you're in and what you're actually watching, some films stand out more than others. If you're watching a movie with good vocals and more of a musical, then I would say something like Dreamgirls is brilliant. If I'm watching something on a movie kind of, a war kind of front, then something like Saving Private Ryan.
no matter how good the movie is on screen, you want to be immersed in that as an experience. And obviously an action film, a war film, or whatever, having a dynamic soundtrack with lots of bass pumping out at you and good surround effects, to me can make a movie.
Well, DataSat Communications was started about 25 years ago, and we're a satellite communication company that specialises in very high-end communications for blue chip and embassy clients. Very secure networks where it cannot go wrong for the client. A company called DTS Digital Cinema came up for sale. Having always been in the TV and loved audio, I decided to buy that division of DTS, and so I bought DataSat Digital Entertainment, we call it now, but it was the DTS Digital Cinema division.
DTS had a great pedigree, it still has a great pedigree in audio sound, and the change from DTS to DataSat has not been an easy one. I mean, DataSat is now becoming associated with movies. The logos are on the film, the logos are on credits and posters at the tube station and so forth. And it has been a hard process to get people to recognise the transition from the DTS film soundtrack to the DataSat soundtrack. And our aim is to make the DataSat brand as well known as the DTS brand.
Our trailers played around cinemas around the world, so from that side of things, we've got a brand there of DataSat, and the message we're trying to get across is that we were DTS, we now DataSat, but still have the same core individuals from DTS. We still have the same engineers, we still have the same people who worked on DTS at the beginning. We have people, the first European employee of DTS is still working for us. So as a core, we have some amazing individuals that can create amazing things, and hence the AP20 was born from that.
So I purchased the company, and we've moved it into the digital era, where I've taken the audio products that we developed for making the perfect audio in a cinema. We've taken those products, enhanced them, and bringing them into the domestic market, which is the RS20i as a result of that.
Well, the RS20i has been born from our AP20 audio processor, which is in the cinemas all around the world. The whole idea behind it is if you want a home cinema, you want to replicate what you see in cinemas and hear in cinemas, and we can do that because our processor is used in cinemas around the world, so hence the RS20i was born.
So it's got all the features of everything you need in the cinema, plus a lot more features for in your domestic high-end home cinema.
With the RS20i, the difference is when the unit came out, obviously the AP20 is for a rack. It's going to be used in a booth that no one's going to ever see, but it's powerful. But for the consumer market, we had to think about, right, it's got to look the part. In a very high-end home theatre, you probably might not actually see the unit. It's still going to probably be sat tucked away somewhere, but it still needed to look the part. So the obvious changes to the actual unit was the front fascia, the screen moved to the middle, the fader moved a little bit towards the right. The obvious changes, power supplies had to be changed to be much more silent. HDMIs to change from 1.3 to 1.4, obviously for 3D content. One big thing that was changed, which is something that was asked from us before actually bringing out this box, and that was to have bass management. So bass management is a huge change that is not available in the AP20 because it's just not needed. So that's in there as well.
Well, for me, I mean, my top 5 things really on the RS20i. I mean, first and foremost, audio capabilities, audio sonic capabilities. I mean, we've designed a lot into the unit, but without the sonic fidelity there, without the audio quality, it doesn't matter what we add, it's not going to be good. So, you know, the design engineers in the US, it's all designed in-house, focused on the audiophile quality of it. For me, my favourite functions is the audio formats. Having different EQs and different channel mapping per format or input is very important. I mean, that's a unique feature to our box. The multiple EQ formats that we can do, 31 band EQ on all channels, parametric EQ, as well as the DRAC room optimization, makes the unit so unique and configurable that there's nothing else out there like that. Automation control is another neat feature where we can act as a host controller with the touchscreen on the front. We can control other devices as well as be controlled, so it can sort of be the central part of your home automation system. And with network access, you can control it via your iPad or your iPhone or other Android device, and it makes it really easy to use.
Because we've come from the cinema and we've had all the history, and the engineers, my engineering group, started with Jurassic Park and have been there all the time, we've been able to take that wealth of experience from the cinema, from Hollywood, into the domestic marketplace. And I think that's where we really differ from the other companies around.
The diversity of it, and it's so feature rich. We've tried to, with our expertise that we have, we've tried to look at every scenario, possibility, wish list, as you were. We tried to create this unit that can do pretty much anything. I have to go back to the story about where we've come from, our legacy. I don't think any other brand can say what we can say. Obviously, our process is used in cinemas around the world. I think that's a massive thing to say. If you want to create that cinema space in your home, why not use a processor that's used in cinemas around the world?
So we are now working with some major companies on bringing 11.1 surround sound into the domestic marketplace and into the cinema. So as we pull it through into the cinema marketplace, we'll also be pulling it through into our products that can go then into the domestic marketplace.
Where we have a traditional 5.1 or 7.1 setup where we have a left, centre and right, and we have left surround and left and right rear. With 3D audio, that you have additional height speakers. So as an example, on the Ori 11.1 system, you have 3 extra height channels on the stage. So you have a left, centre, right where they normally are, and then you have a left, centre, right high. And then the surrounds also have a high level as well. So you have a left surround normal and a left surround high, and a right surround normal, right surround high. And then you have what we call a voice of God, which is a ceiling speaker. And with that, it allows the directors and producers, using the same tools that they use now to mix film, there's plugins created for Pro Tools and so on, that the mix is really the same. They can then really spatialise and position audio where they want it to be positioned, and it gives you a greater awareness, you know, things overhead, or, you know, it does a extra dimension.
In 1983, George Lucas set a standard with THX. In 1993, Spielberg set a standard with Jurassic Park. We're now going into the digital age, and Datasat are at the forefront of that. We're trying to set standard.
The future for us is really exciting. I mean, we're working with, as I say, Barker on the 3D technologies. The AP20 is doing really well as an audio processor. We're looking forward to the future with our amplifier project, as well as the RS20i, and we have lots of other projects on horizon that we, hopefully will excite and the consumer out there and Datasat will be a brand that people recognise and associate with high quality audio.
So obviously Datasat, we started at the higher end of the market with the RS20i. In the future, we are going to be looking to branch out to the mass market, but by no means will our standard slip. We want to be known as the best sound company out there, and I think we will be doing that for the home cinema market in the years to come.
This is an audio signal. It is a clean, continuous signal, yet its power is weak. In order to be heard, it needs to be amplified. For a century, analog or Class A amplifiers were in charge of this task. The amplified signal was then identical to the original one. These amps required a lot of electrical power, generating heat and therefore distortion. Since the 80s, digital or Class D amplifiers are replacing the analog ones. They are much less power hungry. They are compact and give off little heat. But the signal amplified in this way is distorted. It is rough. It loses realism. Although constant improvements were made to it over 30 years, digital amplification can never reach the analog amplification sound quality. De Vialet creates ADH, Analog Digital Hybrid, a hybrid amplification technology associating an analog amplifier with 4 enslaved digital amplifiers. Both systems work in parallel. The 4 digital amplifiers are responsible for supplying the power to the signal. The analog amplifier then corrects and completes the signal they deliver. ADH brings together the best of both worlds, the power of digital and the quality of analog. Freed from the task of supplying the power, the analog amplifier performs better than ever. The ADH technology delivers the best analog sound in the world. Transmitting a perfect signal to the speaker was the first step. Making the speakers reproduce it perfectly was the second challenge. Instruments and voices produce variations in acoustic pressure that are recorded by the microphone. The role of the speakers is to reproduce those pressure variations. Size, architecture, driver excursion, every speaker is different. Therefore, the same signal sent to different models does not produce the same acoustic pressures. Reproduce the exact same acoustic pressure as recorded was impossible so far. With SAM, De Vialet creates the first technology that adapts the signal to the characteristics of the speaker. Using a driver integrated into the processor of the De Vialet, SAM deduces in real time the exact signal that has to be transmitted. For the first time, the speakers reproduce precisely the recorded pressure.
On voulait que le premier contact avec le produit soit spectaculaire.
Le monde que tu as créé, il est vraiment nouveau parce qu'il naît de la vision que tu as des choses et pas du passé.
C'est une aventure qui nous dépasse, qui nous transcende. C'est juste incroyable.
On n'attend pas de l'innovation, on n'y croit pas. A priori, on pense que ça n'existe pas.
De Vialet, c'est né d'une volonté qui est d'apporter cette technologie, cette vraie invention, au plus grand nombre de gens possible.
L'ADH, ça veut dire Analog Digital Hybrid. Et l'hybridation entre une technologie analogique et une technologie numérique donne naissance à une nouvelle classe d'amplification avec des performances qui sont 1000 fois supérieures aux performances précédentes.
L'art sublime la technologie au point de la faire disparaître. On invente le produit parfait, celui qui est dans tous les imaginaires, dans tous les rêves.
C'est incroyablement compliqué à l'intérieur, c'est incroyablement technologique.
C'est extraordinaire par le son que ça fait, c'est extraordinaire par le design, c'est extraordinaire par son expérience.
Comme si on était immergé dans la vérité de la scène sonore au moment où elle a été enregistrée.
Les artistes sont les musiciens et les ingénieurs du son. Notre rôle, c'est simplement d'être le passeur de leur création.
Et pour De Vialet, être sur quelque chose d'aussi universel, c'est quelque chose de très fort. Ce qui nous motive, c'est la promesse de l'avenir. C'est de construire le futur, d'imaginer des choses nouvelles.
De Vialet est là pour changer le monde de l'audio parce qu'il attend d'être changé.
On a une épopée à construire. Si on veut construire une épopée, il faut rêver une épopée, il faut le vivre comme une épopée, et il faut le raconter comme une épopée.
Square waves have been used for years in the development and testing and measurement of amplifiers to test the rise and fall time of a transient. And as you approach towards that perfect square, you're improving the timing and delivery of those transients, and so you're essentially reducing distortion and improving the clarity and transparency of sound.
We'll be testing a speaker cable. Here we have the input to the cable, and the cable goes off the table and spools into a box, and then it comes out and enters this board. First, we have a signal generator that's generating the square wave. We're generating a 10 kilohertz square wave, and this cable feeds the signal to this high bandwidth amplifier. This amplifies the signal, which is then sent out the cable, and then the signal comes back into the board where we can examine it with the oscilloscope. We're using a 100 megahertz Tektronix oscilloscope to look at the signals. All right. I have 4 micro circuits in my hand. Together, these comprise the electric field compensation circuit, which is the core of the Zytron technology. We have specially modified this cable with microconnectors at each end of the cable so that we can demonstrate in real time what the technology does. So we'll be able to actually plug these circuits in and pull them out, and you'll be able to see on the oscilloscope what it actually does to the signal. So we have 2 channels that we're going to look at. We're going to look at the output of the amplifier, the input of the cable. So I'm going to connect the scope probe to the wire, like that. We'll connect to ground. And then this probe, so you see the yellow trace is the input to the cable. Now I'm going to connect the blue trace to the output of the cable. There we go. So, as you can see, now at the end of the cable, this is what happens to the signal. At the end of the cable, you'll notice that the signal is considerably rolled off on the rise and on the fall of the square wave. And what this indicates is that the cable is either absorbing energy or keeping high frequency energy from being transmitted through the wire. Now, we're going to start to insert the electric field compensation circuit. So I'm going to insert these elements into the cable one at a time. There's 4 of them, and you won't really see the total effect until we've completed the circuit with all 4 of the elements. So I put the first 2 in, and now I'm going to complete the circuit by putting the last 2 elements in. And you'll notice that the blue trace is starting to change. And when you look at the scope, you can see that the signal at the output of the cable now more closely resembles the signal that we fed in to the input of the cable. So just to make that clear, I'm going to pull these 2 elements out, which will disable the circuit, so you can clearly see the blue trace, what it's like without the Zytron technology. Here we go.
If you were able to effect that level of difference as an amplifier manufacturer, you would have done something truly significant.
We have the patent application which people can look at, and they can see the specifics of what we're doing. Essentially what we're doing, it's a little complex, but essentially what we're doing is we're splitting the magnetic wave and the electric wave, and we're sending the magnetic wave and the electric wave independently down the wire. So once you make a paradigm shift in technology, then the little things that you used to do to refine a product become almost insignificant. I like to use the analogy of a World War I biplane. You can change the structural components of the plane. You can change the pitch of the prop. You could put a more powerful piston engine in it, and it makes a difference. And the analogy is, in the cable industry, you can change the stranding of the wire, you can change the number of nines of the copper, you can change the insulation materials, you can change the geometry, and it does make a difference. However, once we developed Zytron technology, we now have the equivalent of a jet aircraft compared to a biplane for the old technology. I spent a lot of time in the military working for a division of NSA. It was called the Army Security Agency. We did top secret things in secret locations with terribly proprietary electronics decoding signals that you're not supposed to be able to decode. I served 4 years in Berlin, Germany. And during that time, you were either into drugs, into photography, or into audio. My friends and I were into audio, and so we invested all of our spare change in audio components, and we would do the audio for parties, whether it was for the military guys or for the local Germans.
That work history that he had while in the military, then led to his fascination with power supplies. And obviously the natural extension of power supplies is what they're connected to.
I wasn't in audio, I wasn't part of the industry, I was just an audiophile, and I worked in the networking industry, making network devices and components. So the first product I created was for myself, which was a power distributor, because there was this huge weakness in commercially available products. You either had to use a power strip or you had to use a very expensive, quote, audiophile power conditioner, and all of these devices either had massive transformers in them, massive coils, and they were all trying to achieve the same thing. They were all trying to reject or eliminate noise coming from the outside. And in the research I had done, I had found that those approaches were limiting the ability of the components to draw current, number one, and number two, they were actually reflecting the noise generated by those components back into those components.
He knew intuitively that what connected power supplies to the electrical mains had the capability of improving the performance of electronics in a dramatic fashion through that work in the military.
My dealer at the time said, well, there's some power cords on the market and they seem to make a difference. Why don't you look into that and see if you can apply the principles that you applied to your prototype power conditioner and see if you can make a power cable. And I thought about it for a moment and I told him, I don't think I can really do that, but I'll look at it. So I worked for months and months with different designs, with different types of materials and foils and different dielectrics. And eventually I did come up with a product that was better than the ones that existed in the marketplace at the time. So that then became the first product that I made. And then this dealer liked it so much that he said, hey, can you make 10 of these? Because I'd like to sell them to some of my very important customers. I said, okay, if I got some spare time, I'll put some together. And it evolved from there, where so many people started coming and so many people started asking, can you make products for us, that I had to get rid of my full-time job, and then my hobby became my full-time job.
It was me, him, and his mother, actually. We started out in a 3-car garage, and we were building cables out of his garage, and we weren't building nowhere near the volume that we are now, but, we'd build, 10 cables a day, and it'd be a good day's work. So we made it work like that, and over the years we've gotten bigger, and we've had to get more employees, we've had to get bigger facilities, and
we were just lending products to people that wanted to use them for trade shows, for CES. And through that exposure, people began talking about us.
The product itself, it is its best salesman. The intent being that if we provide a really great product at a fair price, that one person would tell another person who would tell another person, and therefore we would be successful based on that.
Shinyata Research is a specialized company building products that are specific to signal and power transfer, and making those products at reference caliber levels, meaning that there's no compromise to parts, no compromise to materials, and no compromise to the goal, which is to provide the absolute best performance possible from whatever system happens to be in front of the end user.
Every tech builds a power cable from start to finish. He's responsible for every aspect of that cable. And it helps them, you know, knowing their signatures on the backside of that cable. It helps them take pride in the overall performance and the cosmetic quality of that cable.
Now, I do think it's important that things are well built with craftsmanship, and they're built to last, and that's what we do with our products.
Kalen's philosophy is that, you know, in addition to creating products that are at the very pinnacle of performance, but also making sure that those products are accessible to people that don't have thousands upon thousands of dollars to spend on what they may perceive as the best cable product.
I don't create a product specifically designed for a marketplace or a price. I designed them to solve a problem. What really bothered me in existing systems was this overriding noise that would ride the music signal. It wasn't like it was background noise or hum or hiss. It's this grainy, gritty sound that was superimposed onto the music that always reminded you that this wasn't real, that it was coming through an electronic component. Shunyata is a Sanskrit word, and it means the stillness or the emptiness from which all creation emanates. So that word in itself describes at once my perspective and the products that we create. We're in a constant state of R&D. I'm always researching new materials, new techniques. There are many things that we do. Some of them we patent, some of them we publish and tell people, some of them we keep secret. Cryogenics, in the early days of cryogenics, it was one of the performance advantages that we kept secret. But as more and more companies discovered the benefits of cryogenics, it was no longer important or even necessary to keep that secret, so we just chose to reveal this is what we do. You take risks. I've created whole spools of wire, and when you create an experimental type of wire, you don't get to make 5 feet. You get to make 10,000, 100,000 feet at a time, so it's expensive to create a different design when you're talking about wire. But I would say that I've had many more failures than I've had successes. So the successes come hard.
What Kalen's doing that's very different is he's actually building real scientific advances into the designs of the products, and that's evidenced by the number of patents he holds.
I made a breakthrough in the fundamental way in which you transmit a signal across a conductor.
The Zytron signal cables in particular has made the biggest difference of any product or any series of products in our company's history. There's been this progression in his design capability over the years that I think right now, more than at any other time, and the products that he's developed now more than any other products in our history, represent a pinnacle of performance and price that we've never enjoyed before.
Hello, I'm Kalen Gabriel with Shunyata Research, and this is the Hydra Typhon. Today what we're going to demonstrate is the electrical characteristics of the Typhon, well, specifically the lack of reactance of a Typhon. Conventional power conditioners use filters that are composed of capacitors, inductors, transformers, and these all have characteristics impedance curves, and they can be reactive with different types of components, especially amplifiers. So what we're going to demonstrate here today is the lack of capacitance and the lack of inductive reactance of a Typhon. I have a Hioki impedance analyzer here, and this will allow us to look at the resistance, the capacitance, and the inductance of the Typhon. I'm going to turn the Typhon around so we can access the port on the back. And let's just move the impedance analyzer, put it right up on top of the Typhon so that you guys can see it easily. So let's zoom in a little bit here, and you'll see on this menu, right now it's set for, okay, hold it still there, Mino. There we go. Right now it's set for total impedance, and we're going to set it for capacitance. And now we're going to take the probes and we're going to connect them to the neutral and the hot of the Typhon so that we can get a reading. Now if you look at the display, you can see that the analyzer's searching. It's trying to find a capacitance reading, and it's having trouble doing that. So right now it's looking down in the picofarad range, which is very low. And as you can see, it keeps searching, gets confused, and starts all over. This indicates that it can't find any capacitive reactance of the unit. Now what we're going to do is we're going to disconnect it, and I'm going to change to inductance reading. So now we'll connect it back up again and see if we can get a reading on the inductance of the unit. And you'll see that the unit is starting its search. It's trying to auto range. It's searching all the different ranges. It's searching high, it's searching low, trying to find a reading. And as you can see, it's unsuccessful. In other words, it can't get an inductance reading. And lastly, we're going to disconnect it and change to resistance and see if we can get any type of static resistance reading off the Typhon. We'll connect it back up again. And you'll see it's auto-ranging, searching, and it can't get a reading. So essentially, according to our impedance analyzer, you can see that we can't measure capacitance, we can't measure inductance, and we can't measure a resistance. So effectively, the Typhon doesn't have any reactance, and yet it can dramatically reduce the perceived noise in an audio system. Thank you.